What's up, rad lads? It's Rad here with another video. I wanted to make a video not about Fallout this time, I know, crazy, but about another one of my favorite series, Bioshock. These are some of the reasons why I like it, and you should too. My dog really wants to be in here with me right now. Do you want to meet my dog? Oh, he's a big boy. Can you say hi? He doesn't love being picked up. Yeah. All right. Bioshock is such a great series. And although I will focus mostly on the first one, the one that started it all, I will address some of the other games in the series as well. Some of the things that really captured me and made it one of my favorite all-time series are as follows. I really like how they pulled off this 1920s, 1930s type setting with Art Deco architecture and design, as well as a kind of steampunk aesthetic in many ways, with this sci-fi retro-futuristic horror twist. I think it is a really great mixture. Outside of just the aesthetic, which I think looks really great, the world itself is exceptional for many different reasons. Rapture feels simultaneously larger than life. It feels huge, especially when you first see it and the buildings are exceptionally tall and they kind of fade out into the depths of the ocean. And even when you're inside the buildings, a lot of them are very roomy. It's not until you get to other spots within Rapture, especially those tunnels with windows where you're able to see the entire outside world, that things start to feel claustrophobic. Sometimes it can be hard to remember that you're under hundreds of tons of crushing water. That is until you reach a certain spot that is flooding or has sprung a leak, and reality really starts to kick in. It's then that you start to feel kind of like a caged animal, like you're stuck with no way to get out. I think that is a really cool dichotomy, that the world can feel simultaneously huge and spacious, but then it'll bring you back to the reality of living underwater, living on the ocean floor. I also love the first game area that we go to, the medical pavilion. It is such a great contrast with kind of what we saw when we were first coming into Rapture. We see this incredible lighthouse. We see these huge, impressive statues. We even get a film from Andrew Ryan himself, the mastermind behind Rapture. And this all feels so impressive, especially when the bathysphere opens, you step out into Rapture. It really is something else. And it directly contrasts with what we've seen before. It's dark, it's dangerous, you see ruin and destruction, dead bodies, savage violence, blood, and the people that are there and still surviving are horribly disfigured with a single-minded goal to get more Adam. Hey, that's probably another reason why I like it. Adam. That contrast continues because while you're sneaking around, heart pounding, listening to splicers mutter to themselves and say insane things, you also hear the vending machines with these awfully cheerful little quips and sayings and taglines, and it makes for this fascinating but unnerving atmosphere that you really want to explore, but you're simultaneously pretty scared to venture out too far, just in case you bite off more than you can chew, or you end up using way too much of your ammo or your med kits, and then you find yourself in a pretty tough spot. Rapture just feels like a place that is lived in, despite the near impossible way that it's set up and the ability for people to live like that underwater. It's not just an amusement park for us to go through and have things to look at. There are recordings of people that are going about their daily lives. Yes, a lot of recordings do help push the plot forward, reveal more about characters that we know or will know, but it makes Rapture feel like a city that could possibly exist if there was enough money and technology advanced enough that it could be possible. Another huge part of what makes Bioshock appeal so much to me is the story and the characters. One of the things that certainly makes it stand out is one of the principal antagonists, Andrew Ryan, the guy that started it all. It clearly lays out his motive. And through the course of the game, we find out why his dream and his perfect utopia just couldn't exist, why it fell apart. It wasn't just a normal civilization failure, though. It was kind of on a whole new level. People lost their humanity. Both the inner and outside humanity. People were obsessed with one single-minded goal to get more Adam and do whatever it takes to do that. Meanwhile, the Adam was literally changing them on a physical level so that their outside appearance started to match this messed up inside. They don't care for the skillfully crafted, gilded statues that are all around. Nor do they care about all the beautiful decorations or even the art and technology that was developed there in Rapture and what it stood for. The slow unraveling of the story as we progress, who is responsible for what we see, and that huge twist that happens about in the middle of the game is legendary. It hits so hard, as does the demise of one of those principal antagonists. It is really fun to unravel the mystery of Rapture, what it was, what happened to it, and its eventual future. And it's a really big reason why I find myself enamored with the game. I also have a really high opinion of the enemies and gameplay. Although I will say it is not particularly groundbreaking in this respect, it is very satisfying to play, juggling between plasmids and conventional weapons, going through and finding great combinations between those two, how they can supplement each other, using plasmids and different skills to unlock small little puzzles for extra loot, or expanded lore in the form of recordings and the like. I've found a game really captures me when I am partway through or almost done with a playthrough and I am already thinking ahead about the next kind of build I want to do when I play again. The game has me there playing it and I am already thinking more about how I'm going to play it. That is how I know a game has been made well and something that is just really appealing to me. Splicers are the principal enemy we fight the most, and while they're really not that unique of an enemy, there are some others that are pretty memorable, like spider splicers, but what really steals the show are the big daddies. Their initial introduction to us in the game makes a huge impression that you just don't want to mess with these guys. Their armor, their weapons are so cool and so iconic, they can't help themselves but put big daddies on the front of both Bioshock and Bioshock 2. Although, to be fair, with Bioshock 2, you are a big daddy, so it makes a little bit more sense. But there's just something about their armor. They are tank-like. They are kind of retro-looking, and you definitely get the impression that they are underwater creatures. That and the way that they sound, their attacks, all these things combined just make a very memorable enemy. And they did such a great job with that. The Little Sisters are also quite memorable, and being able to get a little bit of choice between whether or not you save or harvest the Little Sisters is kind of nice. And at the end of the game, your choices do make a difference about whether or not you get a good ending or a less than good ending, shall we say. Although I do have to say that was a little less satisfying because it felt a little rushed. It felt just a little bit out of place with the rest of the game. But I absolutely see what they were going for. Now, I don't mean for this to be an exhaustive treatment of the games, but I still hold the very first Bioshock as my favorite, as the best in the series. Although I do think Bioshock 2 improved on a lot from the first Bioshock, except for the story and the principal antagonist. The gameplay is better, it just is, and you're able to dual wield both a conventional weapon in one hand and plasmids in the other, which when you get used to and you go back to the first Bioshock, you kind of forget and you realize you can only do one at a time. In addition, there are expanded weapon and plasmid options, which just make the game more interesting. I do think the game was judged too harshly when it first came out, and although I am a newcomer myself, the general consensus seems to be on the internet that Bioshock 2 has kind of redeemed itself. People have kind of come around on it, and I think that is good because it is really a great game, except for the stability. Even now, in the year of our Adam 2025, when I was trying to get through the game on my ROG Ally, it crashed so many times. But as a testament to how good the game is and how much I liked it, I stuck with it and I figured out a solution to let me get through the rest of the game. Now let's talk about the last one in the series, Bioshock Infinite, which does not take place in Rapture, but in an entirely different place. At the beginning, nothing is familiar. The characters, the location, the point in time that it seems to emulate. It's its own game. That said, I thought Columbia was done so well, even though it was so different from Rapture. Rapture was dark, it was falling apart, it had this Art Deco style, and they definitely leaned into the horror aspect of the location. And Columbia is almost the opposite. It is in the sky, it is bright, it is so lively and so nice looking. People walking around are happy, they're doing all sorts of things. And they do it all with this mid-19th century feel, which makes you want to go around and explore and see more. Like, how are these buildings floating? What do the weapons look like? And those little moving picture kiosks were always fun to take a look into because it was Infinite's way to kind of expand the world and make it feel alive, which they did really well. I really loved the mid to late 19th century aesthetic that they melded with this American exceptionalism and this unique American religion, where founding fathers were basically treated like saints or prophets in a way. I have to say, from the beginning when you first come into Columbia, it had me hooked. I was really intrigued to see where it would all go. And that motorized Patriot is just chef's kiss. What a great enemy to fight. The gunplay felt much better than the earlier games, but it is a newer game, so that is to be expected. And there's this whole skyhook mechanic that lets you get around Columbia, and you can even change up kind of how you fight. Although I wasn't the biggest fan of the skyhook, I like the more conventional on the ground type of fighting. To me, the story of Bioshock Infinite just didn't stand up to either the first Bioshock or Bioshock 2. While I think it had some really interesting elements, they tried to pull off a twist similar to the first game that really catches you off guard. Although, by the third Bioshock game, we're all kind of expecting a twist, so it would almost be a twist to not have a twist. You know what I mean? But I think what they had to do in order to set up this entire twist just made things so convoluted that the game kind of had to climb up its own ass a little bit to make it work, and it didn't feel as clean, it didn't feel as natural, it didn't feel as impactful as previous games. In terms of world building and atmosphere and aesthetic, I think Columbia and Rapture are on even footing. That is how well I think they did with Bioshock Infinite. That said, I do personally prefer the darker setting of Rapture, but that's not to say that Columbia is not done well, it's just my preference. I really do think they stand on equal footing. I don't really want to get into the DLCs for each of the games, although Bioshock 2 has a great DLC. Infinite has some very controversial DLCs, but if I were to do an actual review or retrospective about these games, I would absolutely go more into detail about all aspects of the games, including the DLCs. The real takeaway here is that I love the Bioshock series, and I think that many of you who haven't played it would too if you would give it a chance. Although Fallout and Bioshock are two very different games, and all of you know my love for Fallout, there seems to be some parallels with this retro-futuristic world with a very strong aesthetic that grounds it in a certain point in time that just makes it so interesting to see what their world's version of any given thing is. What does it look like? How does it function? How did the people of these different worlds conceive of something like a robot or automaton? And how did they go about executing it? I just find it unceasingly interesting, and it's something that really pulls me in. So if you haven't played them, you absolutely should. If you have and it's been a while, you should go back and play them. The first two have remasters that make the textures and stuff like that a little better, but really it's a lot of quality of life improvements that make them run better on newer hardware, newer operating systems, and with newer monitors. So you'll have to let me know if you would like me to make some actual reviews of these games. If that is something you're interested in, let me know. Also, I made my entire Discord groan when I was considering doing some Bioshock lore and making a dedicated channel, because it wouldn't be called anything like BioKing, it would have to be Shocking. Huh? Please let me know what you think of these games, whether you like them, whether you hate them, just all your feelings. I want to hear them. Now, behind me, I have a bottle, a soda bottle, and it is none other than a Moxie. I saw this at the store and decided to buy it. It's very uncommon in my neck of the woods, and while it's not my favorite soda, I got it and put it back there because I really like some of these more old-fashioned and vintage type of sodas. Although I have to say that root beers, birch beers, sarsaparilla beers, they're usually my top favorites. But I like all sorts of vintage bottled sodas, and so I thought I'd have a little Moxie here. And of course, this is a nice little Fallout Easter egg because Vim in Fallout 4 is inspired by Moxie. Is this a twist cap? It's a twist cap. Let's see how this is. It's been a few years. It's pretty good. Definitely worth buying and drinking. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Rat out.